Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is actually 3:02 on October 12th. I want to welcome everybody to the Tallahassee City Commission meeting. We've already had a great workshop this morning. I know we're going to have a fantastic City Commission meeting this afternoon. Let's go ahead and get started. To provide the invocation today, I would like to invite and introduce the Reverend Hugh Chapman of St. Michael of All Angels Episcopal Church to please come and provide our invocation. Ladies and gentlemen, if you'll please stand. Reverend, thank you for being here with us.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Shall we pray? Our Father and our God, we thank you for the blessings of this day. We thank you for the blessings of faith and family, and for the privilege we have of serving you in so many different ways. We ask your special blessing upon the mayor and all of the city commissioners. Oh God, you know the great task you've laid on them. And Father, may they prove faithful to this call upon their lives. Bless our city, all those who live here, particularly those who are on the margins of our society, whom we must never forget. Bless our nation and people, leaders everywhere. Is my prayer, and I ask it in no other name but your Son and our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Ladies and gentlemen, if you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Reverend, thank you once again. I'm going to give you a little microphone time. Hey, Reverend, we'll give you a little microphone time. I had the opportunity to come and worship with you the other day. I believe y'all just had a very special event.
Yes, it was.
Would you like to announce to the congregation here what was that special event, sir?
I wish I had a size congregation like this, sir. But it was our 148th anniversary of our founding. Oh, wow. So our church was established in 1882. And it was a privilege to have you, sir, join us in celebration. St. Michael and All Angels is on the corner of Melvin and Harrison Streets. And like I said, we've been serving this community for 140 years, and we plan to do some more.
Thank you so much. That was
Mr. Mayor,
that was a milestone.
I was there for the good stuff too. I was there for the concert.
There you go. Yes, sir.
That's with Longenu and the students from FAMU.
Yes,
it was
sir.
a really nice concert.
Yes.
But I had a wonderful time. You have a beautiful church and a beautiful congregation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Congratulations on the anniversary.
All right. God bless.
Thank
Congressman Lawson is one of his
That's right.
big-time members. He and his wife, Dolores.
Mr. Manager, do we have any agenda modifications for today?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Just one. Item 1101, which is an introduction of ordinance involving a memorandum of agreement with the PBA. It is to set a first and only public hearing. It has been updated.
Excellent. Any questions on the modifications to the agenda? Any questions? Seeing none. That's great. First, let me welcome Amy Tooman, who's joining us today, a city attorney. Thank you so much for filling in for Cassandra. And of course, we know Cassandra is watching right now. Can't possibly miss the city commission meeting, and we hope she feels better. Ladies and gentlemen, we have 4 presentations this afternoon. So the first presentation will be presented by Commissioner Diane Williams-Cox for Hispanic Heritage Month. Right. Commissioner Cox, thank you. Now, Commissioner Williams-Cox, I'm here to tell you that at the last minute, the organization that would be here to accept the proclamation had a scheduling conflict, but we still want to read into the record the proclamation itself.
Thank you. From the governing body of the City of Tallahassee proclamation, whereas each year the United States observes National Hispanic Heritage Month by celebrating the culture, heritage, and countless contributions of Hispanic Americans whose ancestry can be traced back to Spain, Central and South America, and the Caribbean. And whereas the celebration of Hispanic heritage started as a week-long celebration in 1968, and 20 years later expanded to dedicate a month recognizing the generations of Hispanic Americans who have positively influenced and enriched our society. And whereas the objectives of Hispanic Heritage Month are to create a greater awareness of Hispanic contributions to American culture, to illustrate the diversity of the Hispanic community, and to encourage a greater curiosity within young people about the rich history and cultural heritage of Hispanics. And whereas Hispanic Heritage Month uplifts a cultural legacy that shares values rooted in rich tradition that harbor commitment to family and community and preservation to succeed and contribute to society. And whereas together we recognize the Hispanic community in the city of Tallahassee whose love of family and willingness to share their heritage and traditions have made our city a better place to live. And whereas Hispanic Heritage Month is a call to action to reaffirm our respect, appreciation, and support for Hispanic Americans and to ensure that they, like all Americans, are afforded the same rights to pursue their dreams. Now, therefore, I, John E. Daly, by the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Tallahassee, do hereby proclaim September 15th through October 15th, 2022 as Hispanic Heritage Month. In witness whereof, he has affixed his signature on this date, October 12, 2022. So let's join in and celebrate our brothers and sisters, our brown brothers and sisters in Hispanic Heritage History Month. And I hope that they're watching. You may pick this up at the mayor's office.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams-Cox. I certainly do appreciate it. The next two proclamations were by request of Commissioner Richardson. Therefore, I'm going to allow Commissioner Richardson to present them. He will be presenting a proclamation for Careers in Construction Month and presenting a proclamation for Disability Employment Awareness Month. Commissioner, thank you. Thank you.
I'm going to give y'all some context of which I'm presenting this first proclamation. Pastor Judy Mandrell, as many of you may or may not know, is the founder of the Sister Girl Network here in Tallahassee, and you're looking at the only honorary sister girl. So it's appropriate then that the honorary sister girl present this next proclamation, which is a proclamation recognizing careers in construction for women in the construction trades. And as you all know, it's a growing field, especially with what has happened over the recent several years with natural disasters in communities throughout the state of Florida. In particular, it's become a very wide open career, which was largely relegated to men, but now women are venturing into that area as well. And so that's what we're here today to recognize. The proclamation reads, whereas Careers in Construction Month is a nationwide campaign held every October to increase public awareness and appreciation of construction careers, inspire the next generation of craft professionals, expand inclusivity and diversity, and make an impact on the misperceptions of careers in construction. And whereas we're pleased to honor the construction craft professional and the critical role they play in the development of our community, and whereas the construction industry is one of our nation's largest industries, employing more than 5 million individuals in the U.S., and whereas the construction industry needs 1.9 million new craft professionals by the year 2025, and whereas while the construction industry offers high-paying, stable jobs and great demand, the vast majority of workers are white, 59%, with Hispanics, Commissioner Williams-Cox, 31.5%, following, and with African Americans, 5.9%, Asians, 1.6%, in far lower numbers. Women make up less than 10% of workers in this trade. And whereas through a collaborative effort and reaches policymakers as well as local parents, educators, employers, and associations, let's intentionally and effectively address some of the issues or barriers that have contributed to chronic labor shortages and misperceptions of careers in construction by encouraging, welcoming, educating, and training and employing a wider array of interested students and people in this beneficial field. And whereas, in celebration of Careers in Construction Month, let's each and all recognize the incredible importance of and opportunities that exist in construction, and that by building a more expansive and diverse workforce in construction, we all benefit. Now, therefore, I, John E. Daly, by the authority vested in me as mayor of the City of Tallahassee, do recognize October as Careers in Construction Month, and he has also affixed his signature on this 12th day of October in the year of our Lord 2022. I would like to ask Ms. Kerwin Jones-Wilson and Ms. Judy Light if they would come forward to accept this proclamation. It was requested by Barbara Westcott, as you all may know, does the Women Wednesday event each Wednesday of each week. And I also want to recognize Jackie Wilson, who is the executive director of the Women in Construction here locally. Jackie wasn't able to join us today, but want to recognize her as well. So, Kerwin, I want to present you. Now, she already told me that she's not going to make any remarks, but I would like to present you with this proclamation on behalf of the mayor and my colleagues on the city commission. All right. So we're going All right, thank you. Thank you all. Yeah, and as I mentioned, traditionally, of course, construction has been a profession and trade dominated by men, particularly white men over the years. And so now more and more women are becoming involved in the construction trades as more opportunities are being made for them. So we want to thank Barbara and the ladies that were here this afternoon with us for what they do in that important trade. So thank you all. All right. The next proclamation is recognizing National Disability Employment Awareness Month. And I have a special liking for this group as well. I am a school psychologist by training, and so for almost 20 years, I had the opportunity to work with students in the school district in Gadsden County who had special, identifying those individuals who had special learning and behavioral issues so that they could get the appropriate education in the school district. So I have developed a very special affinity for those with disabilities in our community. So this next proclamation is recognizing National Disability Employment Awareness Month. And the proclamation reads, whereas in 1988, Congress declared the month of October as National Disability Employment Awareness Month to recognize the contributions made by individuals with disabilities. And whereas a diverse workforce creates opportunity for growth and helps towards building a stronger economy for our city, and whereas our residents with disabilities deserve the right to live independently, enjoy self-determination, and be treated equally in the workplace, and whereas the ABLE Trust, also known as the Florida Endowment Foundation for Vocational Rehabilitation, has worked with employers and community organizations throughout the state to enable thousands of Florida's citizens with disabilities to enter the workforce. And whereas Florida's Division of Vocational Rehabilitation and Division of Blind Services within the Department of Education assist people with disabilities so they may become employed. And whereas the City of Tallahassee joins the rest of Florida in recognizing the 2.8 million Floridians with disabilities by celebrating October 2022 as Disability Employment Awareness Month. Therefore, I, John E. Daly, by the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Tallahassee, do hereby recognize October as Disability Employment Awareness Month in the city of Tallahassee, and the mayor has affixed his signature this 12th day of October 2022. And I would like to ask Ms. Tracy Lowe, if Tracy's here she is, if she would come forward. Tracy is representing the Able Trust Foundation. And Tracy, I'd like to present you with this proclamation on behalf of the mayor and my colleagues on the City of Tallahassee Commission. Thank you all so much. Would you like to?
Just a minute.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I'm sorry, this is Justin Adams and Tracy Lowe. We're with the Able Trust. Want to thank you for issuing this proclamation in recognition of National Disability Employment Awareness Month. The mission of the Able Trust is to get up every morning and work with our partners across the state to increase employment opportunities for Floridians with disabilities. An inclusive workforce benefits our communities, as indicated in the proclamation, and it also allows all of our citizens to use their skills and talents and contribute to the workforce. So we appreciate the opportunity to be here today as we work to continue and raise awareness about this important underutilized talent pool. Thank you.
Richard. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, for our final proclamation of the day, it is my honor and privilege to honor LGBTQ+ History Month. I'd like to invite my friend Stephanie Schwartz from Equality Florida and all my friends to come join me, please. Everybody's smiling and happy. All right, all right. From the governing body of the City of Tallahassee, a proclamation. Whereas Tallahassee is proud of its diverse, inclusive, and welcoming community, committed to equality for individuals of all sexual orientations, gender identities, and gender expressions, and engages with community partners to provide safe spaces for its residents and visitors. And whereas October holds historical significance because in October 1979, the first LGBTQ+ National March on Washington occurred to urge Congress to pass protective civil rights legislation. And in 1994, a coalition of education-based organizations in the United States designated October as LGBTQ+ History Month. LGBTQ+ History Month, which also includes National Coming Out Day in October, is an annual month-long observance of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender history and the history of the gay rights as it relates to the civil rights movements. And whereas the purpose of commemorating this month is to recognize the impact that lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender individuals have had on the history locally, nationally, and internationally. And whereas in October, we remind the LGBTQ+ community that they are loved, cherished, and deserving of dignity, respect, and support. And whereas this month, we honor the resilience of the LGBTQ+ community who are fighting to live authentically and freely, we reaffirm our belief that LGBTQ+ rights are human rights, and we recommit to delivering protections, safety, and equality to LGBTQ+ families in the City of Tallahassee. Now, therefore, I, John E. Daly, by the authority vested in me as the mayor of the City of Tallahassee, do hereby recognize October as LGBTQ+ History Month, in witness whereof I have unto set my hand and caused the seal of the city to be affixed, read into the record in front of each and every one of you, dated today, October 12th, 2022, signed by me, John Daly, the mayor of Tallahassee. Stephanie, I will present this to you. How about that? Please, please, please.
Thank you, Mayor Daly and the City of Tallahassee for recognizing LGBTQ History Month with this proclamation. I'm the immediate past chair of Mayor Daly's LGBTQ Council, and I'm joined here by fellow council member Kim Ladner and Equality Florida colleagues Stephanie Schwartz and Dawn, who is a chair of our steering committee this year. So one of the most important things that we can offer each other as citizens and neighbors is to fully acknowledge one another as our authentic selves. People all along the LGBTQ spectrum have made significant contributions to Tallahassee and our country. They're people whose accomplishments were excluded from textbooks and historical narratives, people who had to hide and who risked being persecuted for who they were. As the LGBTQ community faces a challenging climate in Florida, it's particularly significant that our local government demonstrates continued visibility and support for this month. So we celebrate the history that's now being acknowledged, and we look forward to all of the LGBTQ history that has yet to be written. Thank you.
More. 3, 3, 2, 1.
Right.
Mr. Manager, do we have any announcements to come before this commission?
No, sir.
All right, appearances by city commission, appointed boards and committees and other governmental entities. 7.01, the annual report of the Citizens Police Review Board. Mr. Sutton, am I going to give it to you or to the manager to kick it off?
Mr. Mayor, I'll simply do this. You mentioned this is the presentation of the annual report. Mr. Gaines, come on forward. I'll acknowledge
Hey, Mr. Gaines, good to see you.
Edward Gaines. He's the chairman of the Citizens Police Review Board. I believe this is his second year. He was the vice chair last year, and he's here to provide a report from the board itself.
Excellent. Hey, thanks for joining us, Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
and we
glad to be
appreciate
here.
your service.
Yes, glad to be here. Well, first, on behalf of the CPRB, I do want to thank you all for getting us on this month's agenda. We really appreciate it. And thank you to each of the commissioners. Thank you to Mayor Daley, of course, City Manager Gold. Just to give you all some context, when I sent the email requesting to share with the great things the board is doing, like within 24 hours, City Manager Gold responded. And actually, he tried to get me on the September agenda, but there was a conflict in travel. So again, thank you. So before I get into my prepared remarks, I just want to share with you a couple things about me. Grew up on the north side, originally on Bannerman Road, went to Timberlane, which is now Gilchrist. In fact, Mayor Daley, I went to elementary school with your brother, Charlie.
Don't hold that against me.
Yeah, and he and I, started the pharmaceutical biotech industry back in the 90s, so we kind of grew up together 2 times. We moved to the south side, and I'm proud to say that I'm a proud graduate of the old Leonard Weston Elementary School, Fairview Middle School, and also Rickards High School. Take it one step further, Chief Revel and Deputy Chief Holmes, I went to high school with them as well. So met my wife on the south side, raised my family here in Tallahassee. And the reason I share this with you is because as a resident born and raised in Tallahassee, as a citizen and also as a board member and as a chair, this is my home, this is our home. So I work for the benefit of the community in which I was raised. The couple things that I do want to do is 2 things. One is share with you the key highlights from the end of year report. I won't read the whole thing to you. It's about 25 pages. And the second thing I want to do is reinforce and share with you the board's commitment to continue to do what it is we were tasked to do within the scope of our authority. So I'll share some ideas with you as well on that. With regard to the annual report, first thing, let me do this. Let me address there was a rumor or misconception that we believed as a board that you all had not read it. We submitted this in February. Here I am in October. I addressed this at the last board meeting. So the board itself, we tried to put that rumor to rest. We understand, in fact, Commissioner Williams-Cox, she reached out to me on Monday. We had a great conversation, and she assured me that you all received it in February and that you all had read it. In fact, Inspector General Dennis Sutton, he also assured me that he'd brief you all in February. So I didn't want to put that to rest. The main highlights from the annual report that I want to touch on are 4 areas. One is the recommendations to the chief, the community outreach, the citizens' input, which happens at every meeting, and also I'll probably spend the most time on the board's recommendation from 21 into 22. So as far as the recommendations to the chief, I won't go through each one. I just want to note this, that we've had a really good relationship in working with Chief Revel, right? So we've submitted several recommendations. And the thing that he does, which he does very well, which in some cities I understand this doesn't happen, is when we recommend something, whether he approves it, makes some changes, or doesn't, he always gives us the why behind it, the spirit and the intent, and he relates it to current policy. So he does a good job of keeping the board informed of, hey, I agree with you, I don't agree with you, but here's why. So I do appreciate that. From 2021, the 2 recommendations we made involved the Rook, and it also involved shooting in or from a moving vehicle, which is General Order number 60, resistance to arrest. He actually accepted both of those recommendations, so I thank him for that. And then the third item from last year's report is, and it involved the magnet mount cameras that fell off during the DUI arrest. That wasn't a recommendation of ours. It was something that was already in motion. But when the board learned of it, we supported 100% in terms of switching from the magnet mount to the hitch mount body camera. So community outreach, this is, if there's been one thing consistent from year 1 to year 2, and we hear it every single meeting from the community, is we want to learn more about who you are, what you do, talking to the board, that is, and what we can do as a community to provide input. And so I'll share some ideas with you when we talk about the recommendations. I think, I've seen some best practices with other review boards throughout the state of Florida, as well as throughout the country. The other thing I want to mention about, the next thing, I want to mention is the citizen input. So at every meeting, we open each meeting with hearing from the community. And I think we've done a good job as a board listening to what they say. Now, of course, some of these conversations get robust, they get a little heated. And you kind of expect that when everyone's working together. There could be some uncomfortable conversations, but as a board, we really listen to what they have to say. And one thing, last year to this year, when you look at attendance, it's about 125. That includes virtual, live meetings, media. And at the rate we're going right now, attendance will be down to about 116 based on the most recent numbers. So I do have what I think is a solution to really get more community input and participation. Okay, the recommended changes to the policy. Or policy recommendations. This is actually, let me find this here. So there were 4 recommendations that the board made with regard to existing policy. And the first one, and this will require, of course, the commission to change some of the bylaws, but the first one is, we want to require that each board member on an annual basis attest to being free of bias, as well as maintaining neutrality when reviewing these cases, these closed cases and these policies. Again, Commissioner Williams-Cox, along with, and I also met with Commissioner Porter last week. We had a really good conversation about the importance of that. So the recommendation is that we like to include is that, and by the way, we do this as applicants when we apply for this position or for this role. So we attest to it anyway. What the board wants to do is to make sure that we do it every year. The second recommendation that we made from a policy standpoint involves a 1 2-hour ride along with a police officer Again, we do that. We do 6 hours right now as part of one of the requirements. And I think that's important because it does a couple things. It's a form of continuing education, so we stay sharp. But it also reinforces us, allows us to see what it is the police officers that serve this community do every single day. And so that when it comes to shaping, recommending policy changes, we truly understand through the lens of the police officers really how that may impact what they do. So that's another recommendation. And the third one was this authorization to explore, expand CPRB's authority. I know when I say that, sometimes temperatures go up. So let me just give you some context. We realize that we are a very young board. We haven't even hit year 2 yet. That'll happen in March. And we're evolving. So the goal is not, when we had that discussion, the goal was not to make some radical changes. We still got to figure out what it is that we want to be when we grow up. I think we're on the right path to that. But it was more of a proof of concept and more of a gathering of information, right? So I think she said she's listening. So City Attorney Jackson, as well as Attorney Painter, they did a great job of explaining to us if we decide to go down that path. And of the 8 or so items we reviewed, only a couple is something we think we could consider realistically. And the others involve statute changes, city charter changes, which is not a path that we want to go down. So just keep in mind that we have not submitted any changes to our scope of authority. It was more of a, let's gather information and see what we may consider down the road. And then the last thing is this request for a small level of funding, right? I know the budget for this year has already been completed. Through my conversations with Commissioner Porter, I do understand that each commissioner does have, I think it's called office budget discretionary. And so the 2 things that we really want to do is do a better job of community outreach, as I mentioned before. And the way that we can do that, again, I've had conversations with Dennis as well as a couple of the commissioners about social media. I don't think that's a path we want to go down, creating our own social media page. But I think one thing that we can do, and I've seen this done with some research in Durham, Atlanta, Eugene, Oregon, Pittsburgh, in Florida, Fort Myers, Orlando, Fort Lauderdale, Naples, St. Pete, Seminole County, Key West, and also Tampa, which we kind of model ourselves behind or after. And that is have a dedicated page on the city's website. And that informs the public when we meet, where we meet, the things that are within the scope of our authority, things that are not. I think one of the big misconceptions was, the community coming to the meeting, they thought, we could recommend, punitive action or so about a police officer. We could investigate the TPD. So I think having that dedicated page, which outlines really what we're charged with doing, as well as when we meet, where we meet, will, allow us to have more community participation. And so the number, we played around with some numbers. I'm going to throw this out here, and hopefully it lands the right way. But we talked about maybe around the $2,500 mark, and whether it's something we do on our own as a board, or we could partner with, like Here For You at Tom Brown Park. We can partner with Faith in Blue or any of the outreaches that TPD and the city does throughout the year. So. And the goal in that is to really, for the community to know who the board is, who represents, their input and their interests, as well as to help, help them understand what it is and what it is that we don't do. So, again, I thank you for this opportunity. I'll be happy to answer any questions or provide any additional.
Mr. Chairman, thank you so much. That was a great report. Yeah, we're going to go to public comment first. Okay. And then we'll come back for questions and discussions. And I am sure that not only, it's an information item, folks, so we'll take a motion to formally accept the report. And, we can have a discussion of the extremely reasonable request as well coming from the chairman. Yes, sir.
There was one, there was one thing I forgot to mention. I mentioned about the end of year report. Let me just mention one other thing that was bullet point number 2, and that was to reinforce and assure you that the board understands its role and its scope of authority. The 4 areas that we're charged with: reviewing completed internal affairs reports, review matters of importance to the community, and the question that, when we do that, when there's a controversy and there's citizen input, the question becomes, yes, the citizens are concerned. The question becomes, how long does that carry on for each meeting? But I think more importantly, what we as a board can do to listen and hear, but also tie that back to policy. So we clearly understand that. And so with that said, I'll close my remarks.
Sounds good. Mr. Chairman, do we need to keep Mr. Sutton, or should he be replaced? Is he that bad? Staff? He all right?
We should keep him.
All right, sounds good. Stick around just a little bit, Mr. Chairman. Let's go to public comment. How many speakers do we have on this item?
Mayor, we just have one speaker on this
Okay,
item.
excellent.
And the speaker is standing. Stanley Sims will take your spot there, Mr. Gaines, at the podium with 3 minutes for remarks.
Excellent. Your name and address for the record, please.
Mr. Mayor, my name is Stanley Sims. I'm at 1320 Avondale Way. And I want to say to this chairman, everything that he has said is really accurate as how he has presented this. And I want to commend you in front of this board. I've done it privately. But I want to commend you in front of this board as well as your other fellow board member of the peculiar spot that they are in, but they have uphill informed me of their Pacific role. And as I've shared with the chairman, I do rule exception of why this board is up under the Sunshine Law, because it doesn't interact with any proprietary information or any information that any citizen cannot get. And so we split hairs on that. And so, but I think the epiphany moment that I had today is when you said that we are children growing up. We're in the growth state. But I would be remiss, because it ain't easy to love me. But the grace that this board has shown me, I'm optimistic. They have put up with a lot. They have endured a lot. And I'm asking you as commissioners, every now and then, stop in. It would make such a great difference. I applaud every one of those members.
30 seconds.
It's been challenging these 2 years, but we didn't give up. And I'm asking that you look at the effect and why are they under the Sunshine Law if we're not giving them any proprietary information? I'm asking that if they get this proprietary information, they can be a little bit proactive and not reactive.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, any other speakers?
No other speakers on this item, Mayor.
Any questions for the chairman, Commissioner Williams-Cox?
Not necessarily a question, but I wanted to, and thank you for the conversation the other day. And I don't know if there are other board members here, but I wanted to share with them what I shared with you, that my door is open. You don't have to ask somebody if I reviewed your report or not. Just ask me. You can call me. I'm available to meet just like I called you and we had the conversation. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you. To some of your recommendations and some of your concerns, you have a dedicated page. It's on the Citizens Advisory Board page. There's a whole section on Citizens Police Review Board. It lists the details of your board. It lists the vacancies, the length of term, your bylaws, membership criteria, and you can find that at talgov.com. There's //transparency/boards. So it's listed under all of the Citizens Advisory Boards that we have. And so you do have a place where you can go for, and it is on the City of Tallahassee's website. You can go there and find the information that you were asking about. I like the idea of the annual attestation, and I was not aware that, I like that the attestation saying that you're not biased. Mm-hmm. But I think that one of the things that, and I said this to you the other day, and I want to say this to in front of my colleagues, I think we need to consider an addition of being able to remove board members if they consistently display biasness, if they display a bias against the police or against the community. And I'm understanding that you had a board member who had a cup on the table that said, "F the police." And I wasn't aware of that until it was shared with me. That, to me, says that there is a bias. Because we wouldn't have known that had they not brought that cup to that meeting and put it on the table. So that's paraphernalia that says there's a problem. And so I think that we need to look at, colleagues, having some repercussions for those kinds of things, because there's no place for that in what we're trying to do here in the city of Tallahassee. As far as the authorization to expand, we talked about that as well. You know, the place to lobby that is going to be the Florida legislature. And the Officers' Bill of Rights is not Tallahassee's Officers' Bill of Rights. It is the state of Florida that is used in all 411 cities, towns, and villages. And so if that is to change, then we need to do that. And I also mentioned to you in our conversation that I have a mentee of mine who has served as chair of her Citizens Police Review Board in Central Florida. She has since relocated, but I talked with her, and she is more than happy to share her experiences when she served on that board and when she served as chair of that board. She's from Tallahassee, so she has a little local flavor that she could add to that. And I also want to share, so everyone will hear, that in our conversation, we talked about who your audience is. Right. You are the community. Each one of you came from the community to represent the community. Right. So you are the community. So as far as your community outreach is concerned, to me, it would seem that you wouldn't do as a board community outreach. You are the citizen of the community, and if you wanted to talk with others, you could do that on an individual basis or attend other community events that are taking place to get information. So that's just kind of where I'm coming from. And I also understand that there was no food at one point, but you're getting food now.
Getting food now, right?
Okay, all right.
And bottled water.
Want to make sure that, and I'm glad to hear that you're not interested in going in the social media direction, because the city of Tallahassee has a very stringent social media policy that we all have to abide by. So I'm hoping that we're doing that. But I do know that along with some of the paraphernalia, there has been some social media engagement that kind of questionable. So I just wanted to thank you for coming. Mm-hmm. Thank you for all the work that you all are doing. Being the commissioner who kind of led us into the creation of this board based on what the community asked for, and having done some of this research and work with the city attorney, I feel very vested and embedded into this process, and was hurt when we've been shouted at saying that we had not reviewed your annual report. I can't speak for my colleagues, but I know I did, and I got briefed on it by the Inspector General and the city attorney. So we're paying attention.
Yeah.
But as I also mentioned, many of our boards don't come to the commission to make a presentation. One of the most powerful commissions and committees that we have is the planning commission. They don't come to the city commission meetings. They send their recommendations and we act on them. So don't feel slighted
Right.
if you're not able to come and make a presentation. I know that someone said to me that the status of women and girls come and make a presentation. They're a joint committee as well. So that's kind of a different thing. So I just wanted to say that thank you all. I'm indebted to you for your service. It does not go unnoticed. It is appreciated. And that anytime you want to talk to me, I am available and will be happy to talk with you. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman?
Could I comment? Yeah, sure. A couple of things you made. So you mentioned the other boards don't come in. It's my understanding that this section 7.01 is reserved for any board that wants to get on the agenda and present to the commission. Is that accurate? The section 7.01?
Yes.
Okay.
Look at the city manager.
Okay. So so the plan is, because that is in the agenda, is once we submit the report each year, the hope is, I should say, is that we get an opportunity to share a presentation with the commission. Regarding the website, I fished around and didn't see a whole lot, but if the commission will be open to, I've done a lot of research on the other like boards throughout the state and throughout the country. If I could just take a, if the commission is open to using some of their best practices in terms of this dedicated page on the city's website, because there's not a whole lot from what I've seen when I do a Google search. Regarding the annual attestation, the cup that you're talking about, I think that would be a conversation between perhaps the commission and the individual that you're referencing. And then in terms of the audience, like who is the audience? I think, I mentioned at every meeting there's citizens input, right? And the board has this role to listen and hear the community, but we also have to share an end of year report with you, make recommendations to the police department, or the chief, I should say. One thing that I do make clear at every single meeting is that all interested parties, community, board, commission, TPD, we have to operate in good faith that we all believe that we're all trying to make this city better and as good as it can be. So I do each meeting, along with the other board members, set the tone, even if there's this, this issue that is raised of controversy. And there's, we've had some, some shouting and some loud talking, but I still, to get the temperature down in the room, remind everyone that we're all in this together as a community. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
All right, Commissioner Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank you, Mr. Chair, for your presentation. And I have not been to the meetings myself, but I have heard what an outstanding job you have done as chair. So I want to thank you for that. I can imagine it's not an easy role to play, and that things get heated. And so I appreciate the temperament and tone that you bring and set. You touched on a few things. I think that, because I was going to ask for clarification as far as the webpage, I would love to see that. I think that what we do have is, information about appointments and who the roster, but we don't have, I think having a dedicated site, because of how important this is to the community, would be beneficial. Having your reports and recommendations, having more information about how to meet, where you meet, and submit an idea, or, whatever it is. So I would support that. I also can get on board with having some kind of budget for community engagement, feedback, town halls. I do want to say that I don't want the mission of the CRPB to be watered down and become primarily about community engagement. I say this to every board member I speak to. You have an opportunity that no one else has. You know, a lot of groups do community engagement, but only you have been given the position to make policy recommendations to us. So as long as that remains the primary focus, then I'm happy to support that. As far as the oath, the attestation, I'm uncomfortable with having a discussion at this point about what it would look like to remove people, especially since at least half of the board, I believe, are individual commissioner appointments. And I agree that having an official website or an official social media page, I think that if we have a really good website, that can perhaps supplement, achieve the goal that you wanted with a social media site. But I think too, we're talking about First Amendment rights that people have. They're not city employees. They have the right to post on social media about what they want to. Yeah. So, I want to make that clear. There's a distinction between what city employee writes on social media and what a member of the public, even serving on a board, posts. And then the last thing I want to say is, although yes, your report was sent to us, we had the opportunity to read it, I do think this board is unique and deserves and asked for the opportunity to speak, and it's taken way too long. So I don't want there to be a repeat of that. And as far as I know, I have sat on other commissions, and when they request an opportunity to present before us, I think they should all have that right. And I think as far as I know, they do, and it's at the discretion of the city commission and the city manager to do so. So I think a best practice is when you produce an annual report, that you be afforded the opportunity to present that to us within a month or two. But I mostly just want to thank you for your service and your leadership.
Okay. I appreciate your support on the, presenting within a couple months after we submit it. The only comment I'll make about well, first of all, if you listen to my son, I'm old school because I'm not on Facebook, I'm not on Instagram, so I won't be doing any social media posts. But I will say this, that our city attorney, assistant city attorney Painter, she did a heck of a job at the September meeting in walking us through when we speak as an individual citizens to the First Amendment right, and when and how we speak when we represent the board. So we are clear on that. And I think the goal in that was, hey, we're not trying to shut you down from voicing your opinion, but you have to be really careful when you're representing the city of Tallahassee and the board versus your individual rights as a citizen of Tallahassee. So we're clear on that in terms of what we can and can't do. So you did a great job of sharing that.
Commissioner Matlow. I'm sorry, Commissioner Porter, are you finished?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Commissioner Matlow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your service. I know
Thank you.
a volunteer board member is not always the easiest job, but you show up every day and do it, so we do appreciate it. As far as, I'm going to backtrack my thoughts, replacing members in that thought, a community police review board should represent all aspects of our community. There are people in our community who think the police can do no wrong and would fly Blue Lives Matter flags. There's people in our community that don't trust the police at all, that would never call the police for help, that would never call when they have information about something. All of those perspectives matter in a community review board, because what we're trying to gather from you is truly what the community perspective is. All of those things shouldn't align. There should be lively debate. I think that's the point. I'm not interested in trying to get to a sanitized board that just regurgitates what we want to hear. We have to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I think we have a good structure in place because you can make recommendations, and then the police chief has the ability to review them from his professional law enforcement background. So there's the community perspective and there's a law enforcement perspective, and we're able to hear both before the final decisions is made. And I think that balance is important. I do think taking ride-alongs and having the perspective is good, but at the end of the day, we need to hear the community's perspective. We need to know if there's policy changes that can be made that will make people more comfortable with providing information, more comfortable with some of the issues that we've seen. Because let's not forget, we established this board because thousands of people took to the streets, not just in Tallahassee, but across the country and across the world, asking for reform and trying to affect change. So that was the ultimate goal of setting this up, for us to truly be able to hear what the community was asking for, what the community was saying, and see where we can make progress, headway. So I know it's baby steps. It's a new board. You're given an ordinance that passed you with no real clear direction outside of these broad parameters, and you're working through the process to see how you take up items, what you explore. Big things pop up, and everybody comes to you because you're now that focal point for the community to speak to. So I do think enabling a website, however we can enable that public message to let people know what you're working on, so they know, one, you are working, and two, you are achieving some of your goals and recommendations. I think that's good for us to celebrate. The other point I wanted to touch on while I have you here, there was a large conversation, community interest, was the Eddie Gallagher training situation. I know that came to your board, and then it was requested to have questions answered at the last meeting, and there was a lot of conversation about it, but my understanding was the city TPD's position was they weren't going to answer any more questions?
Yeah, that's my understanding as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. City Manager, I'm trying to get to, if we have a board that's supposed to make policy recommendations and they can't get basic answers about basic operations, how can they make an informed recommendation?
Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. DC Smith, will you join us at the podium? I think if we're going to have this conversation, we should say everything that was said. So there was no stopping of answers or conversation. DC Smith is the ombudsman that attends the meetings. There was full conversation. She was there. The attorney's office was there. We had our training sergeant there. So I think let's just share what the conversation was.
That's right.
Good afternoon. Yes, I provided the TAC policy, and I gave them an overview. All of the members were given a policy. It's 31 pages. And then we went through the policy, and then Sergeant Angulo was there to actually outline what TPD's training is. So they were given an opportunity to ask me questions. And so that was what in the questions. And then the attorney basically told them what they could ask as far as, it went to how many race, it turned into a race, how many females, and all those kind of things as far as the policy went. So those were the kind of questions that we were asked. So
were there questions about the training incident that weren't able to be asked or allowed to be asked, or there were answers provided?
So we talked about like the vetting process, how do we do training? Yes, those kind of things were asked.
So were all questions on the table? Could any board member ask about what happened with Eddie Gallagher, the situation, and have those questions answered?
So we talked about, as far as the Gallagher incident, we talked about as far as what was said, because the emails came up and those kind of things. We talked about, just like Commissioner Cox talked about, we've given him enough publicity, so we stuck to what the policy said and what kind of changes they can make, because those were what we were discussing, was what their authority is making recommendations as far as the policy goes. So how can training be vetted? How can things be addressed? So they want, there's 4 questions for the next meeting of how we can move forward. So how do we select trainers? How are locations done? How are rosters done? So that's what came out of the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Commissioner Mello.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And my personal opinion on that is some questions are hard to answer. I understand not giving flames to an event, but at the same time, it is of grave community interest. It was in national media. People were very much concerned about it. And if questions can't be asked of the individual details, I'm a problem solver. It's hard to come to how a policy could fix a problem if you don't understand all the ins and outs of the details of how you got there. And I think if we shut down what questions can be asked, particularly about Eddie Gallagher and the training and the connections with TBD staffs and the emails. I think all of those go into at what point in the process should the process start. And if you can't examine that information completely and fully, I think it inhibits and limits the ability of our review board to make recommendations that could prevent that type of embarrassment from happening in the future. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Sure, Mr. Chairman.
So I just want to give everyone some context. So at the September meeting, that was the first time the community showed up expressing concern about the picture with Eddie Gallagher in the police department. And it was more of a venting session. People were upset. And so when we started asking questions about policy for vetting trainers, the physical facilities, how are they chosen, criteria to select the training facilities, Deputy Chief, she did share with us that was somewhat out of her purview, and that's when one of the board members recommended that a ranking TAC member come to the October meeting so that, since they were there and they understand the process probably a little bit more, that we could ask them those same questions. And then, so from September to October, that was the goal. Now, what the community expressed at the October meeting, which was subsequent to the September meeting, is what we saw in the Democrat, the emails, Mr. Gallagher being present at one of the high schools, also Mr. Gallagher being given a tour of the facility. Our role is not really to have this contentious relationship, right? We want to just understand and how it relates to policy. So again, City Attorney Painter, she did a good job of kind of bringing it home, getting us back to what we're here to do. So the action from that meeting was those 4 questions that Deputy Chief Smith mentioned, and those were, how does this relate to policy, right? So we, and City Attorney Painter, she's gathering that information to share with the board. And so that was, again, the policy for vetting trainers, the facilities, how are they chosen, how are they vetted, and so those were some of the questions that came out of that. I just want to give you some context in terms of how we went from 0 to 100. And again, the conversation you and I had, Commissioner Williams-Cox was, at what point, can we go 10 straight meetings of talking about this? Probably not. So at some point we gotta, under my leadership, we will do a better job of this. And that is, okay, we hear the community, we don't want to discount them, they should feel free to share with us matters of interest. But we as a board, given what we are charged with doing, we have to bring that home to policy and how we can impact that if we need to make any recommendations or changes to policy with regard to training.
Sure, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Is it the position of the review board to make any recommendations concerning the training policies of the department based on what you heard from staff?
Yeah, so we don't know yet. So we left the October meeting, October 6th, with City Attorney Painter. Would you please provide us with that information? So we'll look at that and then determine, is it, from a policy standpoint, should we go down this path of making recommendations specific to specialized TAC training? Because it's my understanding that the presentation by Sergeant, I may mess his name up, Aljuro, was going to be about general training. The issue at hand from September to October was specific to TAC training. We do understand Statute 119, there are some things that prohibit us from learning who TAC members are and that sort of thing, but we do, to answer your question, we don't know yet. So we haven't even reviewed those policies yet because we're getting that, that's being sent to us as we speak.
All right, is there a motion on the table to formally accept the report?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Mr.
Been
Mayor.
properly moved by the Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Commissioner Williams-Cox. Any further comment? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. Passes unanimously 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we're on the consent agenda. Have any of the consent agenda items been pulled?
No, sir.
Move consent.
Actually, yes, we did. We heard from everybody that wanted to speak on that item, right, Mr. Clerk?
Yes, sir, we did.
Okay. No items have been pulled from the consent agenda. The consent agenda has been moved by the Mayor Pro Tem. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Diane Williams-Cox. I'm assuming there's no speakers on this item?
Correct.
Okay, let's move forward. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the consent agenda signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, passes unanimously 5-0. We are on introduction of ordinances, 11.01. Madam Attorney,
Thank you, Mr.
your
Mayor.
time to shine.
This is item 11.01, introduction of ordinance number 22-0-29, an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee, Florida, amending sections 14-3.310 and 14-3.410 of the Code of General Ordinances of the City of Tallahassee relating to police employees' pension provisions, providing for conflict, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. There are two actions associated with this item. Option one is to approve the memoranda of agreement for both the police officers and investigators and the sergeants and lieutenants bargaining units for Plan C and Plan D pension plans, clarifying that in the event of a police officer who is killed in the line of duty is unmarried at the time of death, the lump sum provision shall prevail and be paid to the named beneficiary on file with the pension administrator. And then option two, which is to introduce this ordinance number 22-0-29 and set the first and only public hearing for October 26, 2022 at 6 p.m. in the City of Tallahassee City Commission chambers at City Hall. Upon passage, this ordinance will conform the City of Tallahassee Code to the memoranda of agreement.
Excellent. Do we have any public comment on this item?
No, sir.
Okay, we have no public comment.
Move option 1 is recommended by staff, Mr. Mayor.
Option 1 and 2?
1 and 2.
Okay, it's been properly moved by the Mayor Pro Tem for option number 1 and option number 2, seconded by Commissioner Williams-Cox. Commissioner Porter for comment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was wondering if Mr. Cook, I had some questions from him which he addressed, but I was wondering if you could clarify for the public what exactly this is doing.
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner Porter. This item is what we might, as staff, sometimes refer to as a cleanup change to the ordinance. It doesn't add or change the benefit, but it does clarify the benefit that's to be paid when an unmarried officer is killed in the line of duty. Our current language is very specific about the benefits to be paid when there's a surviving spouse when an officer is killed in the line of duty. But it's imprecise in its language about a situation when the officer is unmarried. So this updated language would add that precision to make it very clear what benefit does apply in the case of an unmarried officer killed in the line of duty.
Thank you.
Any further comments? Seeing none. All those in favor of the motion on the table signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, passes unanimously 5-0. We are on item number 12.01.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Manager.
This is an especially timely item, and I'd like to ask Chief Gaines, Fire Chief Gaines, to come forward, as well as Battalion Chief Jarvis Bedford. This item is simply to seek approval to receive a grant in the amount of $904,000 from the state of Florida to be used for our USAR Urban Search and Rescue Task Force. As I think we all probably know, that our Task Force 7, which is one of 8 in the state of Florida, very specialized, very capable teams, was deployed to Southwest Florida and just arrived home yesterday from their 2-week deployment. That's not what this item is about, but it's certainly a great opportunity to recognize the team. I mentioned Battalion Chief Jarvis Bedford. He is now national fame, maybe international fame, with Lester Holt, and he toured NBC's Lester Holt around, and I think it was, Lee County, and he did a great job, and it was very impactful. You know, it was a traumatic thing, but it made us proud of who we are, and so we thought we would bring this item to you and seek your approval to authorize the ability to get these funds for the USAR team, but take a special moment to recognize the team, Chief Gaines and his department, as well as Battalion Chief Bedford for their efforts over the last 2 weeks.
Excellent. Do we have any public comment on this item?
We do not.
All right. Hey, thank you so much. Told you the other day and today, about I could not imagine being a member of the USAR team and what you have to do and you were always there to respond. And I'm going to leave it at that. I'm very proud of the team, Jarvis, and what y'all do. And again, thank you. Thank you very much.
Mayor, Commission, City Manager. I just want to say the item is to support what they're doing. There's dollars available that would allow the USAR team to go out and purchase the vehicles that we typically rent. And we're at the mercy of whatever's available. So if we have a deployment and the equipment isn't available, it hurts our deployment. So that's what the dollars are for. But what I want Chief Bedford to do is just kind of give a brief overview of the things that they experience in South Florida.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager, and staff. I appreciate the opportunity to come here and share experiences. I think it's important, obviously, because none of this would be possible without the support of you and the fire chief. It's a very demanding, it's a very, I would say on a financial, but even time, it's a very big commitment. I think it's important to know that this team is comprised of, the majority is Tallahassee Fire Department, Florida Urban Search and Rescue Task Force 7, where, again, as the manager said, we're one of 8 state teams. Within that, there are 2, which is Florida 1 and 2, which are actually federal assets. There were a lot of firsts for Task Force 7, one being this was our first 14-day deployment. And I would say over that 14-day deployment, out of 17 assets of Florida Urban Search and Rescue throughout the country, Florida Task Force 7 was number 3 when it came to the amount of structures that we were able to search. 2,300 structures in that time period, which included 80 boats alone. There were several of the yacht clubs within the Fort Myers area that was devastated by the storm. We were tasked the last 3 days on Sanibel Island. In order to complete our task on that island, we had to be flown over by the National Guard Chinook. So that was one of the first. Tallahassee, Florida 7 was one of the first to actually be involved with what we call ADSAR, which is Air Deployment Search and Rescue. And obviously, like you spoke on the national news piece, not only with NBC, we had multiple news reporters from all over the country that actually rode with Florida 7. So there's video, there's footage that we have yet to even see. So I take a lot of pride in it because I'll tell you, I was in the infancy stage of this in 2005. Over the years, the current administration has really been supportive and made this happen. I would tell you, as a member, as a task force leader for Florida 7, the impact, there's no words that can express how much and what we're doing for those devastated communities, but also what we do and represent, for the city of Tallahassee. And again, thank you. There's no way possible that we can do it. And last but not least, the team members. And the only way that I can explain to where it would make sense for each and every one of you is outside of active war, some of the environments that we're in and the things that these guys are seeing, it's just tremendous. Often we get caught up and we think it's traumatic events, but a lot of the interaction that we have with the folks that return to their homes is a great impact. Can't say enough. Second alarm, we did have a group second alarm that comes out that helped out with the mental piece to it, the mental health. Again, with that, thank you, each and every one of you, for your commitment and for your support for the team.
Thank you. Mr. Clark, do we have any comment on this?
No, sir.
Okay.
Move acceptance of recommendation.
Been properly moved by Commissioner Williams-Cox, seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem. Any further? Sure, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Very quickly, I had an opportunity to attend the welcome back reception, I guess you will, at Station 4 yesterday for these brave men and women who participated in this. And I can't say how more thankful I am, Jarvis, for the work that you all do here in the city of Tallahassee. First of all, to keep our community safe in the services that you provide, but certainly how you represented our community in this effort to assist our neighbors in other parts of the state who have been negatively impacted by the storm. I mean, the services that you provided under those conditions. I had an opportunity to speak with some of those that participated with you in this endeavor in South Florida, and just, you know, some of the living conditions that you had to endure during those 14 days. It sounded like 14 days, but I'm sure it felt like 40 days to you all that were involved. I remember you telling me you were glad to get back to your house and could sleep in your bed and be comfortable in a bedroom. But thank you all for what you do, and especially thank your families because of the sacrifice that they had to make during those 14 days that you were gone. You couldn't have done it without their support, I'm sure. And so thank you all for what you do for our community and what you have done now for the entire state of Florida. So we thank you.
Commissioner Williams-Cox.
I also want to join in and say thank you. I saw the piece with Lester Holt, but I'm also very proud to serve on the Florida League of Cities Board of Directors. And the email has gone out to board members about how to send help to Southwest Florida. I was very proud to email them and tell them we're already there. Our folks are already there on the ground. And so thank you all for not waiting for someone to ask you to come, but to be on the ready to go. And so I'm very proud to represent the city of Tallahassee, very proud to see you holding your own with Lester Holt. You know, Lester usually get down to the real nitty gritty, but great piece. And please let your team members know that we're extremely proud of all of you, and thank you all so very much. And just knowing some of what I had been in that area just a weekend before at a board meeting at Clearwater Beach, and had to drive to Fort Lauderdale, so I came right through the area where Ian decided to come visit. And I found myself back home after seeing this happening in my own bed, thanking God, one, that I had a bed to be in with a roof over my head, and that my house was not out in, you know, we're not dealing with what they were having to deal with. It's just seeing that they just turned to rubble and all of that, and the lives lost, and, you know, just, it's horrendous. So thank you all again for all that you're doing. You said it was 2,300 structures that you all?
Yes, so it was just a little over 2,300 structures that we searched.
Wow. And as I'm watching the news and the searching of structures and the body count going up as this was happening. And then, of course, there were those who were able to return home. And I think I saw in the news where someone had been looking for their wedding ring. And after the storm, they found the wedding ring just laying there in the grass somewhere in the rubble. So love survives. Love survives. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Seeing no further comments, all those in favor of the motion on the table signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. Passes unanimously 5-0. On a different, lighter note, that Bedford kid who's the quarterback for the Montford Mustangs, he's tearing it up out there. I mean,
That's his daddy.
Jarvis's son is tough as can be out there. He got a little athlete, that's for sure. Plays like his mama. And I get it from you, right, Jarvis? Okay, all right. Nah, hey, it really was exciting to see him play the other night. He's playing good ball. All right, see ya. All right, we're on item number 12.02. Mr. Manager.
Yes, sir. Thank you. This item seeks your approval for a waiver of lot size regulations for a certified affordable housing project. State law grants you the authority to waive development standards and comprehensive plan requirements if necessary for the construction of affordable housing. Habitat for Humanities has approached staff seeking relief from lot size standard of the Land Development Code to allow for construction of 2 affordable single-family homes on Volusia Street. This item requests the approval to do that. Our Growth Management Director, John Reddick, is here to answer questions. This item is consistent with your actions of the past as it relates to prioritizing affordable housing. We've talked a lot about this. There's lots of different definitions of affordable housing, but oftentimes we're talking about income-based affordable housing. These would fall into that category. As you know, there was about 4,200 certified income-based affordable housing units in our community a couple years ago. You have prioritized the addition of these kinds of units, and in the meantime, there are now approaching 2,000 additional. That's about a 50% increase in the pipeline, either constructed or in the pipeline. So this is completely consistent with your priorities and direction, and we seek your approval of this item.
All right, do we have any public comment on this item, Mr. Clerk?
No, sir.
John, congratulations. This is great thinking outside the box in regards to providing more affordable housing. We appreciate it. Job well done, man.
Move option 1 is recommended by staff, Mr. Mayor.
Been properly. You want to say anything, by the way?
That's only if you have questions.
Okay, thank you. It's been properly moved by the Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Commissioner Williams-Cox. Seeing no further comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously 5-0. Do we have anything else to come before this body under policy formation and direction?
No, sir.
Mr. Clerk, we are on unagendaed speakers. Do we have any speakers?
Mayor, we do. We have a half dozen or so.
Okay.
The first is Walter Liebrick. And as he approaches, I'll let speakers know that you have 3 minutes for remarks. There's a light that's green right there in front of the mayor. It'll turn yellow at 2.5 and red at 3 minutes.
Great. Thank you so much, City Commission. I really appreciate you allowing me to speak today. My name is Walter Liebrick, and my address is 2912 Pound Drive. I'm in Commissioner Matlow's neighborhood in Wellswood. Thank you for your service, sir. And I'm here today to first applaud the City Commission on its goal for renewable energy 100% by 2050. There's many hurdles that are going to be involved with the city getting both short-term and long-term to this goal. Some of the long-term goals we're working out with the Tally 100 group, the Rethink Energy organization, and Michael Olson, the manager of clean energy and resource planning with the city. He's been an incredible public servant. You guys are really lucky to have him. I really appreciate it. Now, what I'm here today is to talk about some of the short-term ways that you can achieve this goal. About a year ago, the National Renewable Energy Laboratory and the United States Department of Energy formed a coalition and built something called a solar app. It's an electronic instant permitting for solar permitting. And what this is going to do is it's going to allow the city to allow its current permitters to reallocate those resources to backlogged other permits. And so this is going to benefit a bunch of people. It's going to benefit the homeowner because it's going to provide for a safe automated permitting service, processing service that will reduce the cost and will also reduce the hassle with that the customer has to deal with the city inspectors. It's going to save the city money and the county money because we'll be able to refocus those officials who are dealing with the permits for solar on other backlog permits. And then all of Tallahassee will, of course, benefit, especially if we're forging the way and leading the way with a federal app that's already all we have to do is implement the app. There's tons of money out there right now for the city to implement, and all I need is city officials who will talk to me and who will agree to something like this. Now, I've talked to just about every city official who will listen to me, and all roads lead to one person, Gled Dodson, and apparently he's the person who has the ability to approve this. And every time I talk to him, he ends with this: Walter, I don't think Tallahassee's ready for something like this. Well, I respectfully disagree, City Commission, and I think that this is an action item that you guys can stand on and something that you can implement. Let's let Tallahassee lead the way with the instant solar permitting. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please.
Next is Haley Anderson, followed by Patrick Rowe.
Thank you for joining us. Your name and address for the record, please.
It's Haley Amundson, 415 St. Francis Street, the Cloisters of All Saints. In the City Commission meeting on February 16th, 2022, Commissioner Porter recommended a 6-month review of the noise ordinance that was introduced earlier this year. Therefore, I'm surprised that this is not already on the agenda today, especially since the noise ordinance options were only provided to the public a week before the issue was voted on. Option 1 and 2, introduced by TPD, are subjective, arbitrary, and unenforceable. Therefore, I am not in favor of either option. Now, I have a Master of Science in Planning degree, specifically urban and regional planning, with a political science bachelor's degree and 2 minors in community development and economics. The planning profession is founded in nuisance law. Thus, changing ordinances that impact cities, neighborhoods, and regions should be the domain of city planners and members of impacted communities. I am a homeowner in the urban core. I'm here to protect my investment as well as my property rights, because excess noise decreases the value and quiet enjoyment of my property. Both options introduced by TPD forced homeowners to take matters into their own hands in terms of noise nuisances, which can lead to dangerous interactions and potentially violent standoffs because homeowners have no authority to fine neighbors for noise violations. This ordinance is unenforceable. It creates unlivable and dangerous conditions for homeowners within the urban core. In the February 16th meeting, Chief Revel said that TPD would deal with noise issues in the urban core on a case-by-case basis after the new ordinance is implemented. However, that has not been the case since the new ordinance was implemented. From my experience, the new ordinance had been used as an excuse to cancel noise complaints without addressing the issue, even when we have complained about the same noise on multiple occasions. In the February 16th meeting, it was stated by Deputy Chief Holmes that the new ordinance takes a proactive approach by making a discretionary decision to addressing noise complaints, and that option 1 will more than likely reduce the complaints. This needs to be reviewed in 2 weeks as an agenda item with data and evidence supporting these claims. Both options tie the hands of the responding officer and leave the community underserved. Each time I reported a noise complaint, the officer told me they could not enforce the noise complaint because of the new ordinance, even if they wanted to. How can an organization create a noise ordinance that cannot enforce noise complaints?
You have
Without
about
the
20
use
seconds.
Without the use of metrics like decibel readers, this does not allow for an equal application of the law. Without an objective measure to compare sound against, a reasonableness standard is too subjective to enforce. Both options discourage investment in the urban core because TPD is not protecting our investments. We should remove the noise ordinance change by regulating noise in the residential areas from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. within the urban core. Thank you for your time. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on this.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please, Mr. Clerk.
Patrick Rowe, and then Chris Loudon.
Thank you for joining us. Your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. My name is Dr. Patrick Rowe. I have ties with Pensacola. I got my master's degree and my PhD here, and I was a teacher for 37 years. I've now retired, and I've come back from Pensacola to Tallahassee. I bought a condominium across the street from City Hall. I live at 215 West College Avenue in the Center Tower, apartment 301. And my issue is something that has to do with College Avenue, that it should be one of the most beautiful streets in the city of Tallahassee. Stand over here and look down the street, you see the university. It just should be this beautiful view, and yet the street is just trashed out beyond belief. And my son-in-law, who's going to speak to you in a minute, we have both talked to some of the employees in the city about cleaning up this whole area of Tallahassee. There's some areas where there's just piles of garbage, and a number of the employees have been very helpful, and we're working with them. But in my case, since I'm right on College Avenue, if you walk up and down the street, there are just layers of garbage all over the place. I recommended to the officials we talked to put garbage cans along the street, so when the students are walking up and down, they have a place to throw their trash. But unfortunately, I said, well, we just don't think this will work. Well, it's kind of a common sense thing. If they don't have a place to throw their trash, they're just going to throw it on the ground oftentimes. So I would like to recommend that there are trash cans put along College Avenue, maybe from Monroe down to Westcott. And hopefully that will help alleviate the problem but also there has to be some kind of enforcement, that maybe putting up signs that there will be a fee if they're caught throwing garbage on the streets, and excuse me, also have maybe some officers once in a while walk up and down and kind of enforce the policy of not littering on the streets. Tallahassee should be a really beautiful city, and to encourage businesses to come in and people like myself move here and retire.
You have
want to live
15
in
seconds.
a clean environment. It's just a kind of common sense thing that we should be proud of our city and solve the problem. So enforcement of no littering in that area and having some trash cans put in. Walk around the
Your 3
FSU
minutes.
campus. It is just beautiful. When I was here in the 70s and 80s, it was nice, but it's so attractive now because there are trash cans around and
Thank you.
enforcement.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for your comments. Our next speaker, please.
Chris Loudon, followed by Whitfield Leland.
Commissioners.
Your name and address, please.
Would like to meet you on different circumstances, but my name's Chris Loudon. I'm a graduate at FSU. I've recently moved here. I moved into All Saints neighborhood as well. And I moved there because I wanted the urban atmosphere. I wanted to get to know my neighbors and the restaurants and go to sporting events and become part of my community. You know, it was important to me. And I think that when you do that, when you're part of a community where you support local businesses, that's what a neighborhood is. And I think the relationship is symbiotic, and it creates an economic viable downtown, an atmosphere of, you know, we work together and we grow something together that lasts. And I think it attracts people like myself and other economic investment because people see opportunity there. And I think all you guys would agree that that's how that it does work, you know. And I think downtown Tallahassee is ripe to come back from COVID. And I see people moving in, Governor's Inn, Poco Vino. There's other people that are making investment in downtown because they believe in the people that are down here and what's available to them. But I don't know when the last time you guys walked around downtown or spent some time downtown after hours between Thursday and Sunday afternoon. But if you'd ever like to, I'd invite y'all for an old time sleepover if you'd like to come over sometime. But I can promise you, you're not gonna sleep because it's the noise pollution in our downtown is crazy. And we have an open air venue, concert venue downtown, but it's not Cascades Park. It's on the corner of Macomb and College Avenue. And the bass that it creates reverberates throughout my home, which is 8 blocks away from this establishment. And my wife and 14-year-old daughter can't sleep there at night. And I also wasn't aware when I bought my house that we have a drag strip downtown too, and a race course where people drive up and down. I can hear them racing. The other night I was up at 2:30 in the morning and somebody was doing donuts. It sounded like it was coming from the Civic Center. There's an aura of lawlessness.
You're at about 20 seconds.
There's an aura of lawlessness downtown. And I invite you to come down and look at it, and we need your help. I know you guys are the ones that, from top to bottom, it has to come from you to let staff and the community with noise ordinances. A 12 a.m. noise ordinance is not a noise ordinance. That's a free-for-all. We need your help. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please.
Our next speaker is Whitfield Leland, followed by Stanley Sims.
Your name and address for the record, please.
Good afternoon, Whitfield Leland. This morning, we had a workshop. And I'm gonna be very honest with each and every one of you. Y'all did a disservice to the black community today. I'm a team player. I don't mind partnering with nobody, but everything y'all allocated money to was after the fact. Ain't no money allocated to prevention, engagement, nothing. Crime Stoppers. Only time Crime Stopper activated is after somebody committed crime. Where's the engagement before they commit a crime? At the end of the day, we have black community leaders right now making posts on Instagram of us allocating $300,000 for research. What the hell research gonna tell us when you living in it? Nothing. Nothing. We got people dying. Just had another shooting last night. And let me tell y'all this. Y'all can say what y'all want to say about law enforcement. Chief Revel, when he got in this incident a long, long time ago, I was legit in the bottom of the projects to go up there and see that. But guess what? For the betterment of my community, guess what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna work with him. R.I.P. Lil Nuke. We letting organizations that don't even do shit in our communities come in and pick fights with the police department. And you know where that trickle down back to? The black community. What are we doing? Like, at the end of the day, y'all always say, we need to work together, we need to work together. We working together. We bringing forth, we showed y'all we working together. TPD, the Sheriff Department, everybody, Department of Health, organizations are working together. Where's the resources to stop before? Where's the engagement? We don't have nobody engaging these youth. Nobody.
You're at 30.
But y'all just put $500,000 in a pot where anybody can go create a program and get funding for it. And then I get a call at 3 o'clock in the morning, oh, they done shot up over on Pecan Drive or except I got to leave, get out my bed. Y'all don't get out y'all bed. I get out my bed because the community calls me. Sometimes I get it before the police get it.
You're at 3 minutes.
Y'all got to do something different, man.
Thank you.
Y'all got to do something different.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please.
Stanley Sims. Mayor, that's the last speaker form I have.
Name and address for the record, please.
I ain't got no divorce papers, so I think I'm still at 1320 Avondale Way. My wife just got off work. My name's Stanley Sims. The Bible says, in all of thy getting, you see all I have to do is oh, God. Is my time clicking? Okay. Huh? Oh. I did ask Mr. Mayor prior to avoid this, but she told me that all I had to do. But what I really, once he get this to working, our citizens, our volunteer citizens of the police board, they take a lot. And if I can confess, Mr. Dennis, they probably take a lot from me. But what I won't do is sit quiet and let them take something they didn't do. And I know this is a bother, but I stay here in this cold room for you, Commissioner Diane Cox, because you accused one of the citizen police board members of having a cup say F the police.
No, I did not. I did not accuse
you're on
anyone.
my time.
I did not accuse anyone. I was informed.
Let's all bring it. Let's bring a level of civility, please.
I'm just trying to
continue
reclaim my client. Are we gonna get this working? The cup doesn't say that. The cup says abolish police brutality. It says abolish, and it has an officer hitting with some hands up, and it says that. And she brings this cup Everywhere she goes, she even brought it today. So I just want everyone to know it ain't her. If a cup came, it wasn't her cup, and she wasn't the cup carrier. The other part that I really, I don't know, that's what I said too when you were silent and my son still struggled. I shook my head, because some things you can't put words to. But I'm glad my son is still surviving. Despite the gun, and I'm glad you find it humorous. My son came to you, and you didn't do nothing. Every day my child leaves the house to go to a 6 a.m. job, he was 5 minutes away from being robbed. They kept him there, but they moved the other guy. Gun violence is personal. I don't do this because I enjoy it. I do this because I've been to prison. I've seen young folks in my reentry program behind the wall with Walt McNeil when he got me out of consolidated confinement. Because I don't talk like this out here.
You're at 30 seconds.
I talk like this behind the wall as well. This is my reality when you have black children. Now, I don't know. I've been told. Is it working now? All right. Do I go up on here? You got to go to the computer.
I won't start it if you're not talking.
You like to tell? You have a tie thing, guy. Oh, God, my bad. Well, anyway, I won't belong the time, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted it to be known that that cup says, abolish brutality of the police. Thank you for your.
Thank you. Any other public comment that we have on unagended items?
No, sir.
Excellent. We are on.
Mr. Mayor, I want to address this real quick right into space, if I can.
Commissioner Diane Williams-Cox.
Let me
No, hold on, just a second. Let me get control of this situation because we are not going to do a back and forth. We've had comments from the public. I have recognized the commissioner to speak, but we're not going to have a dialogue right here. Commissioner Williams-Cox, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was not in attendance at that meeting. I've had a couple of board members to tell me that. So I'm not accusing anyone. I'm reporting what I was told. So if there's a correction that is needed, it needs to go back to the board.
Oh, no, I've seen the picture.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make that clear.
So we're not having a dialogue. Commissioner, I'm here to tell you, I've seen the picture.
Okay.
Okay? You're right on. All right, let's move into discussion by colleagues and sharing of ideas. I'm going to go ahead and start. I have two items, actually. I thought this morning's workshop was fantastic and very productive. And thank you all very much. I think we took bold steps to head in the right direction. I'm looking forward to what it brings us. Number two, colleagues, last week I mentioned that I would be asking to begin the process to extend our water and sewer amenities on the south side to the triangle north of Capitol Circle. As you know, the South Side Action Plan, which is one of our priorities in our strategic plan, which is also in line with the county strategic plan, was created to ensure that Tallahassee South Side amenities, services, and quality of life are on par for what the community envisions for that area. This is not only a step forward in the South Side Action Plan, but the environmental impact will be felt for generations to come. By extending our water and sewer amenities, we are taking steps to protect our waterways like Lake Munson, which has been under a lot of discussion lately, both the city and the county, the Wakulla Springs Basin, and of course the aquifer. So at this time, I would like to make a motion to ask staff to bring back an agenda item to extend water and sewer amenities to this particular area on the south side and have that information ready for us by our next meeting on October 26th.
Second.
I have made the motion. It's been properly seconded by Commissioner Williams-Cox. Is there any further comment? Commissioner Matlow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good recommendation. I was interested in getting additional information within the city limits and the urban core, in addition to that area, what exists that's still maybe on sewer or septic tanks and not connected to sewer.
Sure. Sounds good. I will come to you on your time for that motion for a separate item to come back. I think it's great. Any other further comment? Great. All those in favor of the motion on the table signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously 5-0. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Just a couple things, Mr. Mayor. I just got a text message, interestingly enough, from Joey Davis with our fire department, and he indicated to me, Mr. City Manager, I don't know if you heard about this already. I'll read it to you. It says, in case you haven't already heard, Engine 4 was involved in a rollover wreck with one firefighter ejected from the vehicle. The crew is currently all in stable condition. I'll touch base with you later when I can. So let's keep our firefighters who were involved in this incident in our prayers and hope that they will have a speedy and full recovery. And also wanted to share with the mayor, city manager, Mr. City Manager, I'll get you additional information on this, but we had a discussion about the EV readiness for residential facilities. I've gotten information from Steve Leone with, primarily, I guess you could say he owns a lot of different businesses, student housing. And he has indicated that there is lots of federal money available now for EV readiness for multifamily units like apartments. And he has just established a relationship with Tesla to put in some charging stations in the shopping center that he owns, West Pensacola Street. So I thought it might be a good idea for us to maybe contact him and have a conversation with him if our staff hasn't already researched the funding that's available that we may be able to solicit for the city of Tallahassee for that type of initiative.
Yes, sir. Could also add, thank you, Commissioner.
Okay.
Mr. Leone reached out to make an introduction with Tesla. I'm not sure if there's a business relationship there yet or not, but we've gotten the contact information with Tesla, and staff actually talked to them.
Oh, okay.
I think that's going really well, but we'll make sure we can connect with Mr. Leone too. Appreciate you sharing that with us, but yeah, that's well on its way. I don't see any hurdles in that. In fact, the federal funding that you talk about actually has been opened up to the private sector. So let's say Mr. Leone wanted to do a business venture where he provided charging. He could. I think that's a great thing, as we probably need a wide network of charging as we move forward with this future. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor Pro
That's
Tem.
all I had. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Commissioner Matlow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm not going to ask for that to come back as an item if that information could just be provided to us, Mr. Manager, in an email, just areas of town that are still on septic within the urban core.
Mr. Mayor, may I seek clarification? I'd be happy to do that. What we find there is somewhere an estimated 1,000 homes not on the central sewer in the city. That doesn't necessarily mean the sewer is not available, but that the sewer was added at a time after the septic tank existed, and that septic tank is still functioning. The city's ordinance would require that if a repair is necessary, it couldn't be repaired and they would be compelled to connect. So there's a little nuance in that. We'll include that in that, where it's available but not necessarily connected to.
Okay, thank you. That's all for me.
All right, Commissioner Williams-Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 2 or 3 things. One, I've been asked to announce or remind folks about the upcoming Med Week, and I see Mr. Keith Bowers in the audience from Office of Economic Vitality. Would you want to share it, or you want me to share? Oh, there's Mr. Darrell. Okay, I couldn't see you. I couldn't see you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones, I didn't see you over there. You know you have to say something when you're in the room so I can hear that deep baritone.
Yes, ma'am. Commissioners, Mayor, to our community. Next week we'll be observing the 30th annual Minority Enterprise Development Week observance. This year, after 30 years, is particularly special to us. We'll be acknowledging two businesses, our WBE of the Year, Ms. Colette Washington, who has a healthcare instruction business as a workforce developer in our community, preparing another generation of young people who go into health careers to include phlebotomy, CNAs, and other health sciences. And then our MBE of the Year is no stranger to us, Jay Morrell with Early's Kitchen, who's expanding the footprint of his business. As you know, he's already on the south side, also at Southwood and at the Capitol building, but then is starting a brand new entrepreneurial effort that has been facilitated by CRA dollars to expand the former Mount Mary site as a business incubator for restaurants. And so we're honoring him. And then our Reggie Roll Award, our Minority Economic Development Champion Award, goes to our former city manager, Anita Favors, who, for her great work in facilitating the expansion of supplier diversity programs here at the City of Tallahassee and supporting minority women-owned businesses. And so we're asking you to come to share with us and to join us. During the week, we'll also have a variety of workshops intended to build capacity for our minority women-owned businesses. That starts October 17th with an opening reception on Monday night with our partners at Florida State University.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Darrell.
Also want to remind about the City of Tallahassee presents the 2022 Race Relations Summit, The Power of Voice. That is taking place on Wednesday, October the 19th at the Tucker Civic Center. The time is from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And I heard on the radio, I heard the advertisement on the radio, there will be free breakfast and lunch provided. So come on by and participate in continuing the conversation on race relations. Mr. Mayor and colleagues, this morning, as Mr. Leland reminded us, we did have a robust workshop this morning. And I know from personal experience that he and several other community partners have been doing engagement at the various places throughout the city to try to curb what's happening in our community. And I know that he does get the calls, because when he gets the call to go somewhere, he texts me, tell me he's on his way to go see what's going on, and he keeps me posted on what's going on out there on the streets. A lot of this he's doing this out of his pocket. Some of us have contributed, and others in the community have contributed, and that's what I was trying to say this morning, that we did allocate funding, but there are activities that are going on and being scheduled right now that need our attention, that needs funding, so that we can continue to do these things while we put together, work with others to put together what we need to do to move our community forward. I would like to make a recommendation that funding from our Neighborhood First plans be looked at to provide some resources, money, to help with what they're trying, what his organization and others that he's working with are trying to do in the community. And I know that in two of our Neighborhood First plans, they're in CRAs, but one of them is not in a CRA, which is Griffin Heights. And I can take the CRA ones up when we get to a board meeting of the CRA, but I would like to make a motion that the Griffin Heights Neighborhood First plan in the area of community engagement, that they use up to $25,000 of those dollars for community engagement activities that can be performed by the Community Roundtable, Peacemakers, and others, because several of these things are happening in the Griffin Heights community, as well as some of the other communities that have Neighborhood First plans.
Okay, motion on the table to provide direction to the Griffin Heights community to spend up to $25,000 of the Neighborhood First Plan
from their community engagement allocation.
from their community engagement allocation.
And if I need to say that differently, and I'm looking at city manager, deputy city manager, y'all help me frame it in a way that, because however we need to say it, dollars need to be on the street to help engage these young people while we figure out what it is we're needing to do.
Dr. Thomas.
Hold on, I'll second it for discussion so we can get some clarification.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. I believe that is in the right posture. I don't hear any issue with that. Those dollars are assigned and there's a community engagement portion to that. So I think you'd just be given direction on the carve out of what exists already. Do you see any issue with that, Dr. Thomas?
Can I ask a question?
I got Commissioner Porter, and I got the Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioner Matlow. All right, Commissioner Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question to whomever about whether that violates Policy 250 that we recently passed, that any program that is eligible for CHSP funding go through that process.
I can answer that. Sure. If you like, Mr. Mayor. In this case, it doesn't. You have specially created this Neighborhood First program. I think that's probably what Commissioner Williams-Cox is getting at. If it's an allocation of funds from the City Commission directly to an organization, you've created a policy that says do it, and it's a human service orientation, do CHSP. You've created special funding for neighborhoods themselves and assigned some of that money for community engagement. So I think there is neighborhood-centric decision-making. In this case, it exists. You could do what Commissioner Williams-Cox is talking about, because those dollars are going to come from that neighborhood program, not from the City Commission straight to a human services organization. And that's the flexibility I think you intended when you created that funding.
Okay, I just have a, thank you, a follow-up. I mean, I hear you. I don't want our hands to be completely tied. That does seem to me to be outside of the spirit of that policy, even though I understand it may be slightly different. I also don't feel comfortable making a decision without input from the Griffin Heights neighborhood. You know, I don't know if they have requested this or if that money has already been encumbered or, you know, spent as far as, you know, in their plan, committed already. So, you know, those would be my questions and my concerns.
Thank you. The Mayor Pro Tem?
Commissioner Porter has asked, I think, a very important question. The other question I would ask is, if this were done, would those funds be restricted to be used in the Griffin Heights neighborhood?
That answer is yes. And Mr. Mayor, if you'd like, Ashley Edwards, her neighborhood team is, you know, they've worked hand in glove on all of these plans. She can probably give a little more context. There is an intended element of the plans for engagement. That's the intent. The dollars are set aside for that. And lots of conversation. You guys know there's some anxiousness on the part of the neighborhoods to get moving. So I know it's not inconsistent with that, and there is an intended use. Actually, maybe you could provide a little more context from the Griffin Heights neighborhood in particular, and to Commissioner Richardson's question. Yes, it's a neighborhood approach. It couldn't be used outside of that neighborhood. Actually, can you add any more context?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Manager. All three of the Neighborhood First plans do have components that feature community engagement, and they do provide dollars to organizations that, as the manager said, would have normally gone through a CHS or been eligible to go through a CHSP process, but because these projects have been identified and they're structured through the Neighborhood First planning process, they go through a review, an application process, review process through parameters that are designed by the neighborhood themselves. So there is, it's not really, the commission has given that direction of the type of programs they would like to see, and then the neighborhood works to develop the details. Each of them do have, funds as part of their plans for community engagement. There are funds available, and certainly with your direction that this is an area that you'd like to see funded, we can make sure that as we're tailoring those programs that we can be specific about those desires.
Mr. Mayor, one other, I am in complete agreement with Commissioner Porter in that the issue that I have with this and taking this position here on the dais is that there is an active neighborhood association in Griffin Heights, and I'm sure that they have ideas about how they want their money spent. And I'm just not sure that it's appropriate for us to determine how they spend their money without any input from them. Even knowing if this is something that that they have established, and maybe they have, as a priority for that neighborhood. Mr. Barber was here earlier. He's the president of the Griffin Heights Neighborhood Association, and I certainly would want to hear from them and get their commitment to this before I would sit here and determine not only what is best for their neighborhood or what is needed in their neighborhood, but even who we're going to give it to. Not that they're not doing the work, but there are other organizations out there that could make just as much of a justification for this kind of funding, I would think, as well.
Okay, let me weigh in real quick. I know what the end goal is, and I agree with you on the end goal, okay? We have got to re-engage on the streets immediately. The peacekeepers work. We know that. For the 3 months that they were engaged, we had no shootings in Tallahassee. One of the challenges that we have is we have great organizations like Community Roundtable that have not been around long enough to participate in CHSP, all right? So they're not getting the CHSP funding right now, but yet they will get the CHSP funding. I feel very comfortable that they will in the near future. It was mentioned earlier today. This is when we talk about the bridge funding, okay? What I would suggest, Commissioner Williams-Cox, is, and by the way, I had a separate conversation with Amber Tynan actually this afternoon before the City Commission meeting, Mr. Leland, and I asked her personally to reach out to you and the Community Roundtable to make sure that we are offering all the assistance that we possibly can to make sure that the Community Roundtable and other organizations that currently are not receiving CHSP funding will be in a position so that they can receive CHSP funding. That's a great step. Commissioner Williams-Cox, what I would suggest, because I do not think you have the votes right now for the current motion on the table, is our policy allows the city manager the flexibility to execute a contract up to $50,000. I do know that Mr. Whitfield Leland has been in conversations specifically with Cynthia Barber in regards to how do we complement what we're doing right now by bringing back peacekeepers to be able to move forward. I think it's just straight to allow the city management to execute the contract without pigeonholing in Griffin Heights neighborhood. Not only do you have the concerns about, well, we haven't checked in with the neighborhood association, we don't know if that fund's already encumbered. I also have a concern with the geographic limitations of it coming out of Griffin Heights. I mean, if Mr. Leland gets a call at 3 o'clock in the morning, it's 2 streets outside of Griffin Heights. Does that prevent him from responding versus if it's, 2 streets inside the geographic boundary of the neighborhood? So I see the end goal. I agree with you on the end goal. We have got to re-engage peacekeepers immediately as we begin this longer process, which we decided upon earlier today. Mr. Manager, I'm coming to you about how can we meet the end goal without constricting already allocated funds to the neighborhood association under current policy?
We can put our heads together, Mr. Mayor. I don't know that I've got a crisp answer for you. I will tell you that Deputy City Manager Barber's been highly engaged on this. And she does believe the Neighborhood First programs are a good funding source. I think they have mechanisms to make those decisions, those neighborhood teams. I think that's an avenue to pursue. That's not necessarily what you just said, but I think that And I think that's the power that you've given to those neighborhoods. So with their support, I don't think you abandon that. They may wish to do it. I think allow her to work on that and see if that is fruitful. We can certainly, see what we can come up with. I know this week, the community roundtable peacekeepers are using our community facilities. There are 4 events. One was on Monday. I believe one was today. And then 2 more coming this week that in our facilities were used at no cost. And those are, things that we can do to facilitate community engagement. We'll continue to do that. We can, like I say, put our heads together, maybe department funds, if there's sources of dollars that encourage engagement. We're more than willing to do all of those things. Clearly, those won't be sizable amounts of money. We obviously are limited in budget, but we find resources that we can make available, whether it's community centers or being very strategic in the use of neighborhood money that may complement their plans. And certainly with your direction, just encouragement, we will do that. We didn't start today on this. This is something that staff's been engaged with, both at the neighborhood level, with the community roundtable, and just generally speaking. So we will continue all of those pursuits with your support and direction.
So let me summarize. The end goal, I agree with 100%. The question is the funding source. What I'm suggesting is you might be able to garner majority support, if not unanimous support, by not just putting limitations on the neighborhood first plans, providing direction to execute a contract for $25,000. And by the way, this is not a new entity to the city. We have had a relationship. That's why I am comfortable moving forward. We have seen the proven success, and we know the immediacy of making sure that we are back on the streets. The bottom line question is, how are you going to fund it at this point? Which pot of money is it going to come from? And what I'm hearing is pushback from the neighborhood first plan. My 2 cents. I got Commissioner Matlow, and then I got Commissioner Porter again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It seems like the logical first step is to just ask the neighborhoods if that was something they'd like to include in their plans. I don't think we should dictate. The whole purpose of the neighborhood first plans to me was to let the neighborhoods be in control. And if that's something they value and including in their plans, it should definitely be their decision. On the second part of what's being proposed, I go back to the policy 250 because it would be an eligible CHSP nonprofit, which we just allocated funding that they could go apply for and get. So it just seems like I understand the time limit constraints, but within existing policy, we'd be either overriding a policy we just created, which is not to have this city commission independently fund nonprofits outside of a competitive process, or we dictate to neighborhoods what their process should be. So I go back to, I think the first step is ask the neighborhoods if there's a willingness for them to allocate that funding from their portion to these services. That could happen pretty expeditiously, I would think. But I don't know where you get on the second point of allocating new funding for nonprofits, whether that's independently through departments, or that really gives me pause for concern. Where's that money coming from? What line item? What is it being taken away from? So those are my comments. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And Commissioner Matlow, you are absolutely correct, and that is a conversation for the community roundtable to have. Or do you want to move towards the short term in a smaller contract, possibly funded by the City of Tallahassee, which will knock you out of eligibility due to oral policy for CHSP? Or do you want to play the long game for a longer contract in a bigger role in what may come in the near future? I don't think anybody can answer that but the organization itself, but I do agree with you. It's either or, not both. Commissioner Porter?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I had that same question that Commissioner Matlow raised. And I just have a quick question for you, Ms. Edwards. To your knowledge, the other neighborhood first plans, or any of them, have they ever contracted with a nonprofit to do this kind of community engagement? Or has it been more, like a community potluck or community fun day? Or can you just...
The Griffin Heights neighborhood is just now kind of getting their plan up and running, so they have not yet done anything with community engagement funds. The Bond neighborhood has done several different community engagement projects, and the Frenchtown folks, they are in the process right now of going through, I think, what is the most similar to what you're talking about, which is a grant application process where they have accepted applications from a number of different nonprofit organizations to provide a variety of different services that are targeted to complete steps and tasks that are in the plan. In other words, they've said, here's the things we want to accomplish. If you think you have a project that would help us accomplish that, submit an application. And as a result of that, there will be funding provided to some nonprofits to do that type of work.
Okay, thank you. And I'll just weigh in very quickly. I think that if any of the neighborhood first plans want to do this, then I'm happy to support that. But that's where I would be on this. Thank you.
I agree. And Commissioner Williams-Cox, I'm coming back to you, but it puts the organization that does have a proven track record in a position where they have to choose. So if Griffin Heights decides that they want to move forward with a $25,000 contract for services within the geographic boundary, that will knock out any organization from being able to receive CHSP funding, which might be a longer contract, or it might be a little bit more money in that contract, depending on what the services are through CHSP. So that's only a question that the organization itself can answer. Commissioner Williams-Cox.
Okay, I wanted to go back to the city manager. Is that, because maybe I misunderstood, that if funding is received through the neighborhood first, does that really knock them out of CHSP?
I'm not sure, really. I mean, it's possible these are very, very specific things, and the criteria sometimes is tough. It may not. We potentially could interpret it as capacity building, much like our Bridge to CHSP program, where people could receive a small amount of money with the intent that it's used to build capacity, so you'd be more successful in CHSP. I'd have to get back with you on a firm answer on that.
Okay, because I don't want us to go into this thinking definitely that it will. And besides that, let me just be real. The way I calculate money is your future and present value of money. If presently you don't have it, the future ain't gonna matter. We got people who are trying to save lives, and they're doing it out of their pockets, or they're doing it by asking others to make contributions while we try to figure out how to get this done. Griffin Heights has $6.4 million. And I'm not talking about the other neighborhood first plans, because that would be a discussion that needs to take place at the CRA. So I'm only talking about the city-funded neighborhood first plan. $6.4 million that they haven't spent a penny of. And we're in the new fiscal year. That money was allocated for the last, we did the 6.4 during the last fiscal year. So my thing is in 6.4 million, and we're talking about less than $50,000 out of 6.4 million. I know it may not seem like a lot to some folks, but it's a lot to me, that we could invest, because it is an investment, to try to engage our youth, save some lives, and do it now. I know this is a government. I know there's a lot of some color tape, I won't call it red tape, that we have to go through. We got to make sure we follow the law. I agree. Dot all the I's and cross all the T's. Meanwhile, things are still happening out there, and we're sitting here as a body being able to move quickly to try to stop the bleeding now, as we've been charged to do by some. So I will say this. I am doing my best to try to empower community members who have the passion and desire and have shown that they have the ability to try to help us help us. Mm-hmm. So if you know, my colleagues, you go how you want to go. I've made a contribution. I'm sure I know the mayor, you've made some contributions, and some of the others may have made contributions. We can't get it done that way. We've got to be able to give so that they can plan and do things. And make some things happen. We already know that based on the engagement yesterday, 2 people were encountered who are high school graduates who are want a job. A call was made, and I think they're going to be working with Tempo to perhaps get that. That means that that's 2 people, 2 individuals who are now looking for another way to be successful and are not out there trying to do something that might not be what we want to have happen. So my appeal is that we figure out a way to help organizations help us preserve life.
Mayor Pro Tem, did you want to follow up with comments on that?
Not necessarily.
Oh, I thought you were in queue. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I am.
Oh, okay.
But I don't necessarily want to follow up on that other than
Okay.
to say.
I mean, on the issue.
Oh, of course, on the issue.
Sure.
Because Commissioner Williams-Cox, we've got lots of organizations out there that are doing, the Boys and Girls Club do it every day.
But they're
Big
not here
Brothers-
asking us today to do
Big
something.
Brothers, Big Sisters do it every day. There are other organizations out there that do those kinds of efforts in the community, neighborhood associations. They do it every day. So I don't know that we can make that justification for what you're asking at this point. And the other question that I would ask, and Mayor, you've said a couple of times that it's an organization with a proven track record. They've shown that they were successful in that for 2 months when they were operating, that there were no shootings or killings. I haven't seen that information. So if it's out there and if that's true, I'd like to see the report or from the organization or from the police to say that there was an association between this program, these 2 months, and the elimination of shootings and killings during that same period of time. And so I would ask for that kind of justification too, that it's happening and it's working. Because, and one of the things, the issues that I have is, there could be other organizations out there that could come and make the same argument for what they do in the community. And there are some. And if, we just start, we have a process. It's a process that's worked over the years. And I think we go through the Community Human Service Partnership Program and let the case be made there. It's not like this has to happen tomorrow. I mean, we've been dealing with this for a long time. It doesn't have to happen tomorrow. We just talked about GVI and the fact that they didn't see results for over a 5-year period of time. Even if we started this tomorrow, there are still going to be shootings and killings in this community. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to stop overnight. And so, yeah, of course, as all of us have said, one is one too many, but I don't know that we're in that big of a rush that we set ourselves up for having to answer to other organizations that might come forward and ask for this same thing, and we don't know if it's going to work or not in a week or 10 days or a month. That's the concern that I have.
Commissioner Williams-Cox, do you want to withdraw the motion? I do not think you have the votes for it to pass.
No, Mr. Mayor, I do not want to withdraw the vote because I want it to go on record how the vote went down.
Okay, I am going to respectfully withdraw my second on the motion. Is there another second on the motion?
Well, that secures failure because you can't move forward without a second. So,
Is there another second on the motion? Okay, then the motion does die for a lack of a second.
Okay.
Commissioner Williams-Cox, you have the floor. Okay.
I'm done.
Commissioner Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I agree with the comments that were made that I really enjoyed the workshop we had this morning. I think that we did provide a lot of support and funding to people who are on the ground, who have been on the ground. And I look forward to what that looks like. I think that the piecemeal approach that perhaps we've taken in the past has not worked. And I really hope that we can stay focused based on the decisions we made this morning, and take that path. You know, we made that decision, let's stick to it. As far, I only have one other issue, and that's just, Mr. City Manager, we had some comments about the noise ordinance. I've gotten some emails, and I believe we said it would be in October. We have one more meeting in October. Do you know if that will be on the agenda for the October 26th meeting yet?
Mr. Mayor? Sure. I do, it is scheduled.
Okay.
All indications I have is the information will be ready. They're compiling the information. A lot of what, and there's a distinction, I think you all understood the distinction between the urban core / entertainment district, the bifurcation of enforcement. So, of course, that's existed. So you're going to hear a lot about the enforcement in the area where we have the requirements, the use of citations and warnings, but it's scheduled for the next meeting.
Thank you, and that's it for me.
Okay. Any other issues coming before the body? Seeing none, great meeting, great day. We stand adjourned. Mr. Manager?
Yeah.